All right, hello everyone. We are. No, we're good. We normally start around 9:30,
Yeah,
so we're good. We're a
yeah.
little bit early, actually. So we're good. Alright, so, hello everyone. Welcome to the podcast. We're on. I think this is the third week in a row. We might make it a solid month. Oh shit! Never mind. We won't because I'll be out of town next weekend.
How could you, Clayton?
It's not like we don't regularly disappear. This channel,
Yeah.
at least we're
Event.
more active than some of the more popular channels.
Hmm. Well, eventually we'll get rewriting Ripley done.
Yeah, but I wanted to talk about this week, and I have something we're probably gonna do after rewriting Ripley. I just need to talk.
Ooh,
I need to talk with you about it.
that sounds
All right,
sounds good.
but this is an article that a lot of comic. I've seen a lot of people cover this one, so I figured, you know what, we're bandwagon people. Let's jump on that bandwagon. I'm excited to cover the next one though, because that's gonna be fun. Any that being said, so the SJWs, as is their nature, will not rest until everything that was, positive or apolitical, will in some way has some form of diverse political message. This, of course, does not exclude things that have already been complete works of the past, great those works we hold up in high regard, i.e., Shakespeare, the original Star Wars, cultural milestones that, matter. The impressive thing is they haven't gone after the works of Stephen King that much.
Well, Stephen King's kind of isn't Stephen King already a part of their clique?
I have no idea. I don't read Stephen King. His work isn't that interesting.
I just know that Stephen King just has really hardcore Trump derangement syndrome.
I'm sure he did. So, well, let's get started. And by the way, for fair warning, I haven't read this article yet.
And neither have I. So we're both
So
going in.
so this is blind reactions basically. So Lord of the Rings fan site describes J.R.R. Tolkien as woke. Lord of the Rings fan site, The One Ring, recently described Lord of the Rings writer J.R.R. Tolkien as woke in a recent Twitter thread. The Twitter thread. Okay, so to clarify, there is two The One Ring websites. One is like the onering.com, the other one is the onering.net. If you go to the .com site, it's like an official lore page for Tolkien. Like it's the official lore page for all the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. Like it's the world's history and all that. It's sort of like Pottermore is for the Harry Potter universe. It's an official site. The OneRing.net is a fan site, and it was basically, you know, what would you would expect out of a fan site. So the website appears to have some kind of connection to Amazon Studios' current Lord of the Rings TV series production, given they were the first to receive and publish the official synopsis of the show back in January. Regardless, they took to Twitter where they began in a thread condemning homophobic comments. They wrote, "Listen, we've been dealing with homophobic comments for decades and it is still wrong. Whatever toxic arguments are being said now about Lord of the Rings fandom and adaptations is the same trash people said that Ian McKellen was the worst affront who said Ian McKellen was the worst affront to Tolkien's legacy ever. Hashtag pride." Now, we don't know who Ian McKellen is.
He's the guy who plays Gandalf.
Oh,
He's a very famous actor, and he's openly gay.
Okay.
And yeah, well, obviously I can't say I've ever heard anybody say that.
I agree.
But even then, keep in mind, like Lord of the Rings came out, or the Lord of the Rings movies came out in, I'd say, like the early 2000s.
Yes.
People weren't as open towards gay people around that time as they are now.
Very true. They followed that up by writing cogent, respectful debate on Tolkien is always welcome, but homophobic, racist, misogynistic trash is always a case for banning. It is not what Tolkien fandom is, wants, or welcomes. We used to be able to ban in the in the era of message boards and IRC, but in the era of social media, uh, plat-
Yeah,
they wrote the platforms can't keep toxicity out of our community. We can mute and block, but the only for this account's feed. Twitter is not a community simply because it lacks anti-troll tools. Nasty people still show up in replies because toxic friends subtweeted us.
so I would be curious to see like what kind of examples they have and that count as racist or misogynist.
I would also be interested to see their examples.
Because the people who
But what's even
bitch the most about racism and misogyny tend to kind of make a big deal out of nothing.
or they tend to be racist and misogynistic themselves. Also, like remember remember in the era of the message boards when we could control what people said? Here's how very authoritarian of you, the One Ring.net. The Twitter account then argued Tolkien was woke. They tweeted it, quote, if you still think Ian McKellen is the worst and that Catholic Tolkien would have never approved, I beg you to read more of Tolkien's books and letters. He was woke, stood against hate, embraced all cultures in life and fiction. It's why his books are translated into every language.
Um, I would like to. I would definitely like to see some examples of where he talks about that. Because
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
also would.
keep in mind, Tolkien. What or Lord of the Rings would have been written in the 1950s, and I think Tolkien would have been probably at the very least kind of a middle-aged man, and also he's a devout Catholic. Suffice to say, I kind of
I
doubt
don't
he was open towards
I
homosexuality.
I agree. The man's views would probably not. He probably would not have looked fondly on homosexuality. And if he had some racist views, it would not be alien for the time. Like it wouldn't be some sort of miracle. In fact, the what they're describing, like the standing against hate and the respecting all races and cultures, is definitely something that would be alien. It would be an alien viewpoint to have for the time period.
Yeah, this is reminding me of what this one Sonic news channel was trying to do on their Twitter. Whoever was in charge of the Twitter share tweet or share retweets about Black Lives Matter protesting. People kept giving him shit, so he tried to make this video trying to claim that the Sonic franchise was always woke. So this justifies me retweeting Black Lives Matter protesting on a Twitter channel that's supposed to be about Sonic and only Sonic.
Precisely. Everything was always woke. We don't have weird views that inevitably lead to tyranny and the deaths of millions. We have always been here. Or it's your favorite thing was always this way. Remember that. A lie repeated oft enough will in fact become true. Uh like
I mean,
all right.
you could make the argument that some of Tolkien's views regarding like some of Tolkien's views regarding environmentalism do make its way into the books. Like he's very much more pro environment. Like the ants being furious about the trees being all cut down is obviously a huge allegory for it.
Yeah, but even then, like, again, that's somewhat of an alien view for the time period. But like he doesn't he doesn't he's not a man. He's not like a woke commie. He doesn't care about diversity or anything like that. That's at no point I would want to see the evidence where he spoke about how diversity is diversity and the embracing of all cultures as equals would be something that he addressed in his letters and books. In fact, you could argue that the elves are pretty racist to everybody else. Like they're not super or welcoming to the humans that stay with them.
I'm going to this talk racism that they're claiming comes from the fact that apparently this new Lord of the Rings series on Netflix is going to be a lot more racially diverse, complete with black elves. And
Yeah,
that's more,
that makes sense.
And then people are more angry about that because like Tolkien's like the world of Middle Earth takes huge inspirations from European mythology. Mm-hmm. Naturally, people are going to be white, but when you have like a 99% white cast, that's problematic in current year.
Yeah, exactly.
Though Black Panther is fine, it has a 90% black cast, and the media will cheer that shit on.
Yep.
Even though with both Black Panther and Lord of the Rings, it makes sense. Both mythology or both series make sense why they would be predominantly racially homogenous. Like there's justification, but the media would still have double standards regardless.
Oh, big time. They continued the thread. If you think Ian McKellen gets a pass, but whatever Amazon is doing is a disgrace to Tolkien, please think more on your personal bias before tweeting. Our block button is very active, and if you retweet/enable toxic voices in the name of free speech, you do not love Tolkien.
Okay. Well, okay. And if I remember correctly, one of the things the Amazon series wants to include is nudity and sex, something that was not present in Lord of the Rings at all.
Oh, we're getting to that.
Like the books, when it comes to the books, I've only gone through the Hobbit and Fellowship of the Rings, and yeah, the books are very, very PG rated.
Oh yeah,
they get to dark places, but they're very family friendly at the end of the day.
I would be surprised if I would be genuinely surprised if there was any sort of nudity or sexual like implication of sex in any of Tolkien's works.
And of course, and once again, yeah, Tolkien was a devout Christian, so yeah, he's not going to throw sex around in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And
also, I love this argument. If you retweet things that we don't like, you don't stand up for free speech in the name of free speech. So, people having opinions we don't like, you're not a real Tolkien fan. You're not a real fan unless you believe that black people could have been that. You're not a real fan unless you believe in black elves. And the orcs being redeemable. That's probably going to happen.
Probably.
There's probably going to be an orc character. And what's going to be really funny is if the director just doesn't know anything and casts the orc and casts a black voice actor or a black actor as the orc.
That'd be hilarious.
It will be hilarious.
Yeah. Though in Tolkien, I believe Tolkien did say that it is possible for an orc to be good, but I'm pretty sure I don't think the writers would be able to handle that competently.
Of course not. They're SJW writer. They're writers for Amazon.
And I know other YouTubers have said this, but just with the nudity and sex, it really does sound like Amazon just wants their own Game of Thrones. They want Game of Thrones. They want, even if they don't, they will do whatever it takes to make their own Game of Thrones, even if it means taking an IP that's completely different in terms of tone and message.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I definitely need to. We probably need to reset the Wi-Fi thing eventually, but for now it'll work. Finally, they concluded with the thread writing #Pride gives us some of the greatest performances beyond all expectations. You know, I found the greatest meme of this today. It's the Aperture Science logo that's rainbowified, and it reads out like the Aperture Science like GLaDOS voice. Just, we at Aperture Science are like super proud, and we'll be there to fight. We acknowledge your pride, and we'll be there to fight for you. We'll be there to support you afterwards. Please continue to buy our product.
Yes. Okay, yeah, that's
Like, and that
Oh, go on.
and that's the thing, like about pride. It's pointless. Does not give you anything. Like that's why I've never been to Pride and I don't plan to go. Because I because being gay does not make me proud.
Yeah, that's
Being
pretty
a
much.
good being a good person, being successful at my job, doing this makes me proud.
Yeah, that's pretty much been my thoughts regarding sexuality, race, gender, and so forth. It's don't be it's just to be completely apathetic towards it. If somebody says that they're gay, you just don't give a shit. You don't condemn them. You don't cheer them on. You just like, okay, and then go about your day.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you get equality. It's basically just showing just disinterest in people's differences. So I also just kind of want to call attention to the new, I guess, the new pride flag. I always just find it interesting how they have
Yeah.
a black and brown stripes, which I assume represents like LGBT people of color.
Yes.
But you
It does.
don't have, but it's only for black and brown people. Like what about the Asians? Don't have an extra yellow stripe for Asians.
Exactly.
You don't want to hashtag stop the Asian hate. And also there's the trans pride flag is also mixed into there.
Yeah,
I
I
think
see. I saw that.
there's already like trans visibility day. So I'm wondering, do gay men have a day or day or month exclusive to them? Because I think
I don't know.
I think lesbians have a day, and I know trans have a day.
I don't know. I don't care either. I don't need I don't need a parade to validate my own existence. I'm gonna put that on my Scruff profile. Be like, bitch, fuck pride. I don't need a day to validate my. I don't need a month to validate my existence. Fucking do it right now. It is unclear what the One Ring is specifically taking issue with, other than it has something to do with Ian McKellen and the Amazon production and alleged comments made about them. As you can see above, they don't actually provide any evidence of these comments. And as for Tolkien being woke, one has to wonder what kind of definition of woke the One Ring is using, because Tolkien is probably the furthest from woke you can get being a devout Catholic. To elucidate this point, Bishop Robert Barron of the I have no idea what that is.
Archdiocesan Fuck it, I'm not gonna pronounce that either.
Yeah, exactly. Describes wokeism as an intellectual virus. You're damn right. While asking if this ideology is the answer to injustice, he provides an excellent definition of what wokeism actually is. He questions, but is this Foucaultian woke philosophy which holds to an
Foucaultian, I think.
I don't know, to an antagonistic social theory which deconstructs language, which denies the objectivity of moral norms, and which sees reality simply as an incessant struggle between oppressor and oppressed, the answer. That's excellent. Thank you, Archbishop. Or I guess he's not an archbishop, he's just a bishop. Thank you, Bishop. You have provided succinctly a jumping off point for me, because this is why the end of wokeness is death for millions. And like, I know that's obvious. They're commies, but people don't really understand like why. Because and this is why, precisely this. See, an incessant struggle between oppressor and oppressed. That's it. Like, when you break it down, if you eliminate your oppressor, there must become a new oppressor. And it can't be you, because you are the righteous oppressed. Your anger and validation comes from being the oppressed. So you have to point to a new oppressor. And this is why intersectionality has sort of begun to spin itself into has sort of begun to eat its own tail. Because inevitably, you have to create the stack of oppressors. So you have the straight white male. Well, once all straight white men have no rights and they're enslaved, well, then they're not oppressing you anymore, because you have them, because basically they have to kneel to you. They have to kneel at your feet and do whatever you say. Then you have just white people. Then you have of white people, gay white men, gay white women, and so on and so forth. The stack keeps going until you have divided such a to such a small portion of the population that inevitably everything is run by essentially what is one person. The reason that inevitably it works that way is because because their ideology is inherently deconstructive. They can't do anything. They can't build anything, because if they build to build something is to possibly offend someone. You're building something may offend someone. And if you offend someone, you're clearly an istophobe or whatever. So you have to deconstruct everything and break everything down to its pieces with no intention of rebuilding it. Because to rebuild, you have to be willing to offend someone. Bishop Barron makes clear that this ideology is not the answer. He actually encourages fighting against it. Of course not. And perhaps we should be encouraged by the French alarm at the emergence of wokeism in their midst. For now, they are the very society that produced the intellectual virus. This might join the fight against it. Tolkien would not deny the objectivity of moral norms, being a devout Catholic. Biography Humphrey Carpenter detailed just how central Tolkien's Catholic faith was to him, as he attended Mass daily at St. Aloysius. Not only that, but Carpenter writes his commitment to Christianity, and in particular the Catholic Church, was total. He adds, this is not to say that the practice of his faith was always a source of consolation to him. He set himself a rigorous code of behavior. especially in the matter of making his confession before receiving communion. And when, as often happened, he could not bring himself to go to confession, he would deny himself communion and live in a pathetic state of spiritual depression. Tolkien would also deconstruct the language, being a philosophist by trade, philologist, I think. That's the opposite of the profession he chose. He also wouldn't view the world as a struggle between oppressor and oppressed. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops clearly states the Church's love for the poor is part of their constant tradition. This love is inspired by the gospel of Beatitudes, I guess, of the poverty of Jesus and his concern for the poor. Those who are oppressed by poverty are the object of preferential love on the part of the church, which since her origin and in spite of all of the failings of many of her members, has not ceased to work for their relief, defense, and liberation. Add for the love for others, and in the first place, love for the poor, in whom the church sees Christ himself, is made concrete with the promotion of justice. That is the opposite view of viewing the world as a struggle between oppressor and oppressed. Agreed. But see, that's where sort of this religious view tends to have things right. And that's why I don't subscribe to atheism. I will define myself maybe as agnostic, but atheistic, no. And there's a reason for that. I believe morality is has an inherently prescriptive nature to it. Like, what would you you would define a good person as someone who does X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
Well, you're saying that in order to qualify as a good person, you have to meet qualities X, Y, and Z. You've essentially prescribed morality to the world, or to at least what your definition of good is. But that would be how I'd break that down. One then has to wonder what in the world the folks over at the One Ring are doing, because it looks like they're actually trying to sully J.R.R. Tolkien. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
If they're getting, if they were receiving like news about the Amazon series directly from Amazon, just sounds like they have to say they're just saying what they must in order to lick their boots.
Possibly. I again would want to see what these comments are and these retweets and whatnot. These retweets and comments are, because I would want to see the homophobic slurs that are being thrown at the onering.net.
I mean, perhaps they're just bringing it up because it's Pride Month and
Probably.
since Gandalf's actor is a gay man.
Yep.
Just putting two and two together to try to solidify their narrative a little more.
Remember, if you don't like everything woke, you're a racist or whatever. An istophobe or whatever. Petition calls for Amazon to keep nudity out of their Lord of the Rings series. A petition has been created that calls for Amazon to keep nudity out of their Lord of the Rings series. The change.org petition was created by a Catholic Memes and is directed at Amazon Prime, the Lord of the Rings director J.A. Bayona.
Oh, you know something I've thought of. So what they need to do, they need to make a live action series based on some sort of African mythology, but make the pantheon of gods racially diverse. But don't even have a white guy in there. Take one of the gods, let's say I guess who would be like the lead god, and make him an Asian man. Don't even yeah, just
Don't
make
explain why. Just make
yeah,
him Asian.
yeah, just make the gods racially diverse. Don't have any white people, but still make it racially diverse, and just let's see how it
Watch their heads
reacts.
explode.
Yeah. And, like the media is just like, what the fuck do we say? What do we do? It's a fucking meme of the guy who can't decide what button to push.
The petition reads, Amazon Prime has an upcoming Lord of the Rings series set before the trilogy. They have hired intimacy coaches and have asked actors to be comfortable with doing nude scenes in the castings. Really?
Yep, like I said, trying to make their own Game of Thrones, trying to copy Game of Thrones, even though Lord of the Rings is not Game of Thrones.
Hmm. Tolkien's work is truly wholesome and packed with incredible Christian symbolism. He was a devout Catholic, and his memory does not need to be stained with gratuitous nudity or even nudity in the slightest, it continues. It concludes, Tolkien's creation have always been mostly family friendly. Keep it that way.
Yep, I don't disagree. Lord of the Rings is definitely a more family-friendly fantasy, whereas, like I said, something like Game of Thrones or Berserk are definitely more geared towards an older audience.
I agree.
Those are dark.
They're
That's dark fantasy, but this is more um, lighthearted fantasy.
mhm. Rumors back in October indicated that the series would feature nude scenes and that the production had indeed hired an intimacy coordinator. Those rumors came from The One Ring and Night Edge Media. One Ring discovered a casting call for a TV production in Auckland that asked if actors were comfortable with nudity. The casting call was from BGT and was titled "Comfortable with Nudity." You can see it below.
An intimacy coordinator.
Yeah.
Oh god, so that makes it sound like there's going to be some kind of a very well detailed sex scene.
Yep.
I'd say if it comes to, if there has to be a sex scene in the Lord of the Rings thing, I'd say at the very most all we see is the couple kissing, or just see them sleeping in bed, and it's implied that they're both naked, but not just straight up spelled out. That way it's
That
still
doesn't seem to be Amazon's goal. They seem to want their big fantasy epic, and instead of, pulling from the many fantasy novels out there and making one, stand out on its own, bringing attention to a lesser known fantasy series. Why do that when you can just rip Tolkien out, stuff everything that he didn't actually put in there into it, make it a prequel, and call it and just have one of your media goons type the review, be like, Amazon's Lord of the Rings is the next Game of Thrones. And then immediately people will be turned away because we all saw how that ended. Really.
yeah. There's so many other fantasy series you could turn to. You could do a fucking Percy Jackson animated series. I would like that. And it's also, and Percy Jackson is a much more diverse cast, and it makes sense because it's set in the modern age.
Hmm.
Like there's things you can do. There's a lot more what's the word, leg room.
Yeah. While the casting call does not explicitly state it's for the Lord of the Rings show, one of The One Ring's Cliff Broadway claimed, "We have seen other notices that may apply Lord of the Rings using code word or jazz for interesting looking actors and horse riders. However, a separate casting call that does state it's for Lord of the Rings asks applicants to use the word action." Aside from these casting calls, Caleb Willings at Night Edge Media discovered that intimacy coordinator Jennifer Ward Leland had been hired to work on a project called Amazon's UAP. It is unclear what UAP stands for, but it could be an acronym for Untitled Amazon Project. The partners, Intimacy Director, Lee Basement, Xmas Cabaret, Leon Wyndham, Daughter of God, The Eggplant, Crooked Ties That Bind, Untitled Amazon Project, Six Angry Women. One Rings Broadway claims that Amazon's UAP is the catch-all working title for Lord of the Rings. Amazon Studios has not officially addressed these rumors. As for the petition, it's been signed by over 32,000 people so far. What do you make of the petition? Do you plan on signing it? No. Change.org petitions don't do anything, number one. But number two, Amazon, and this is the thing that I think a lot of fandoms really need to sort of hop on right now, is that your creators, the creators and others, will come in and destroy the thing you loved. They will burn it to the ground. That does not mean that the original works, like the books and the movies, aren't still great and you can't still enjoy them.
Yeah,
And
exactly. That's the thing that bugs me when people say that Star Wars is dead, or
yeah, exactly.
like all the good movies, the good books, the good video games, they all still exist, and go and enjoy those.
Like the fandom will still be here. So let Amazon kill this whatever it is, because at the end of the day, the Lord of the Rings story has been told. Like it has been told from prequel to the ring being dumped in the fire. I have no idea. Like, is this supposed to take place before The Hobbit, or is it supposed to take place before Fellowship?
Well, it takes probably before Hobbit, so probably I'm not sure actually. I'm not sure where it takes place chronologically. If I had to say, probably maybe after Sauron's death or Sauron's destruction, and before the Hobbit. So in between that 3,000-year time period.
So we're talking a 3,000-year time period where kingdoms rose and fell, and the ring was possessed by Gollum, or the ring was like I don't understand what stories they're gonna tell out of this. They have to basically they basically are gonna make shit up.
Yep.
Which means that the entirety of the Lord of the Rings people, they could just be like, yeah, that's just fan fiction. We can ignore that. Like that's effectively what it is.
Yeah, that worked out. Yeah, that worked out so well for the Hobbit trilogy, just making shit up.
Yeah, it did. 3 movies. We didn't have 3 movies worth of stuff, but still, we wanted 3 movies worth of stuff. So let's make shit up. But the shit we made up was garbage. Shh, don't tell them. Nobody read the books. But people saw the movie and then they read the books, and there are those people that read the books before the movie. Poor Artemis Fowl. Artemis Fowl did not deserve that.
All right, so
for its foray into cinema,
okay.
one of the best series I've ever read, Artemis Fowl did not deserve the treatment it got.
So I've never read the books or seen the movie. So just in a quick nutshell, what was the worst thing? The worst thing about the movie?
I haven't watched the movie.
Well, what have you heard that was the worst thing about it?
There, Artemis Fowl isn't Artemis. It's not the Artemis Fowl movies.
So they
It's
just
some fan fiction of that someone replaced Artemis Fowl's name in.
so it very very loosely follows the book's plot.
No, doesn't even follow the book's plot.
Ooh, so worse than the first Percy Jackson movie.
No, it's effectively the first Percy Jackson movie. You know how it's like not at all anything like the book? It throws things that from the book at the screen, like, hey, you read the book, you remember this thing, this moment. Yeah, we've got it too. Here it is. That's what effectively it was. That's what effectively the Artemis Fowl movie is.
Oh, lovely.
Artemis Fowl, the book, is about a 12-year-old child who basically kidnaps someone, holds them for ransom, and outwits an entire governmental organization. Like straight up just outwits people thousands of years older than himself.
Definitely gotta check the books out then.
Oh yeah, it's worthwhile. They're worth the read. Like he does all of this he does all of this, and then in the second book and the third book and the fourth book, look, he becomes a better person. Like he changes. It's one of the best redemption arcs ever, and it takes place over the course of years. And it works. It works so well because you have, like, in the books give you reason to sympathize with Artemis Fowl, but you understand that what he's doing is wrong. But it also gives you reason to sympathize with his victim because she's not exactly innocent by any means. And at the end of the day, yes, there is. And in fact, the next book begins with the immediate assumption that Artemis is responsible for the main plot, for the driving force of the plot. Like, immediate. And I'm just sitting here like, Disney, you had the opportunity to have some faith in your fucking audience, and you just threw it away because there's everyone because everyone is retarded. If they're not, if the plot isn't explained to them, they won't get it. Remember, those plot details must be hammered out in front for the children. And they're too stupid to understand and things like that. And we can't have a complex character. Or what will the children think? That it's okay? They'll think that the children will think it's okay to go and kidnap random people. And hold them for gold ransom. Rant over. TLDR, the Artemis Fowl movie doesn't exist. Only in book. Only do the books exist.
Also, moral to this entire video: if you're writing a book series, be very protective of your IP.
Indeed.
All right.
I think if Tolkien were alive, he would be most displeased.
Mm-hmm.
Most displeased.
Yeah, I've heard they kind of went through with a lot of this stuff, like the nudity and stuff. They kind of went through with that after Tolkien's son passed away, because he had a lot more control over like what they can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's kind of like actually kind of like SpongeBob. Once the creator passed away, Nickelodeon's like, all right, let's milk this cow dry.
Yep, they'll do that. Anyway, that's everything I had. Anything else?
Nope, that's it from me.
All right. Well then, thank you all so much for watching. Please remember to like and share us about. Will help us grow as a channel. Well, maybe someday in the not too distant future, or we'll have a consistent upload time and audience for or me and Caesar to do this on as a job.
Yeah.
But that would be living the dream. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Y'all have a great night.